Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me. I'm recording this very late at night and my son is asleep, so I hope you can hear me. This is the second time I'm recording this. I started the first video with an apology and I decided to stop myself because I realized that the very context of this video is based on the whole premise that women have to constantly be apologizing. So I started re-recording this. Over the past few days, I've been talking about leaving my job and leaving the US and traveling the world with my son. And I think it's very important that I put those things into perspective because a lot of times, you know, I because of my career and because of what I've been exposed to, when I put out something, when I say I'm going to travel, there's always an assumption that here she goes again with her luxury stuff. This isn't about that. This is about me taking time off to heal. Last year, 2021, I had my first baby in July. It was quite a rough year in general. I mean, it had been a rough 2 years. And when I made a decision, my partner and I at the time made a decision in 2020 to have a baby. You know, we had this whole structure created, well, a plan that what that was going to look like. And those who know, you know, those who are close to me know that I then lost my partner and then ended up having to do this alone. I'm not going to edit this. I don't know how to edit. So it's going to be as raw as possible. And I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can. But I come from a long line of ramblers. So it might just end up being very long. So please bear with me. I think that women, especially mothers in general, expected to just have this great amount of strength and know how to do things and how to persevere and how to shut themselves down so they can take care of their kids. We're supposed to be very strong, you know. I mean, we're going through a pandemic. I'm going through a pandemic with the baby, and I'm doing it alone. I mean, I don't have anybody else waking up at night when my son cries. I didn't have anybody. I had a C-section. I took care of my baby alone with the wound, the pain and everything, and while trying to keep this little person alive. I never underestimated the amount of work that it takes to take care of a child. It was a pandemic, so I couldn't really bring a whole team of people around me to kind of help out. I had my sister. She was staying with me at the time, but she's since moved back to New York to pursue a career. And my other sister's moving to Texas, also with work. So they did their best, and I'm so grateful for that. When it comes to taking care of a child, again, I never really took that lightly because I worked extensively around the world as a nanny and as an au pair. And I did that for at least, you know, over a decade. So I'm kind of clear about what it takes to raise a child. So under no circumstances did I underestimate the level of commitment and the level of work that it takes. Being my son's only parent isn't necessarily the hardest part of this all, as much as the emotional aspect of it and as much as the circumstances around me now having a child. A lot transpired with my job. The second my employer figured out that I was now the only parent in my child's life, I mean, I did everything possible to not have that affect how I show up at work. And I quickly sent my child to daycare at 6 weeks old. But I went back to work at 5 weeks. When my son was 5 weeks, I took him to work with me for hours on end. I mean, I started at 5 hours, slowly at 5 hours. And then I went on to going back to my usual 10 to 11 hours. And then as soon as I could, I sent my son to daycare. This was me again trying to do that thing where, balancing out being a mom and still maintaining a career that I've built over 20 years. I've worked my way up from being an au pair to being a nanny to being a governess to being an estate manager. So there's a huge responsibility involved when someone is an estate manager. I mean, you are literally responsible for somebody's complete lifestyle, and this is like a lifestyle on I work for the 1%. This is a lifestyle on a very high level, so it's very intense. But I have over a decade of experience in that now, and so I kind of have a blueprint of what it takes. Again, I don't underestimate the amount of work that's involved, which is why I went and took my son to daycare. He was there from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sometimes to 5:45. However long I could stretch it, he stayed there. So I barely saw him. I'd wake him up in the morning while he was still asleep, get him ready. He'd be screaming. I'd put him in the car and I'd drive him to daycare, and I'd be the first one there because essentially my job started at 7. It was 5 minutes away from the daycare, but I would literally be tapping my foot for the daycare worker to come out and grab him so that I can run to work. And then I would actually work an hour later just to make up for the 5 minutes that the 5 minutes that I take in the morning to drop off my son. So I'm saying this because this is just one example of how women have to overcompensate at work, especially when they've become parents, because there's this unspoken idea that you're going to underperform and you're going to prioritize. God forbid you prioritize your child as a mom. Even worse when you're doing it by yourself, because now I'm having to play the role of both parents by myself. So, there's a lot of aspects that come into play when it comes to that. So when my employer started to figure out that I was the only parent and probably, according to her, the only financial muscle, I guess, in the upbringing of my son, she, a mom, started to make the work environment very unbearable just to see how far she could push me. She started adding jobs and more responsibilities to my job that I wasn't getting paid for. So I would come home frustrated and emotionally drained and not being able to spend the 1 hour that I had with my son before he fell asleep. I'd spend it very agitated from just the experience that I've had at work. So I started to try and figure out, is this really worth it? Because when I decided to have a child, I wanted to see him see me thrive. I never wanted to give up anything to have my child. There was one of the conditions that my partner and I had, that none of us were going to give up our career aspirations to raise a child. So I always wanted to turn up for my son as best as I could, even if it's just for 1 hour after work, even if it's 2 hours, however long I have with him on any given day. I wanted to turn up as the best version of myself possible. But I found that to be less and less so because I was so frustrated from what my employer was doing at the time. And I think maybe she's just trying to see how much she can get out of me without really having to compensate for it. So when I brought that up, she basically, told me that you're going to do what I tell you, how I tell you. And so I said to her, you're going to have to find somebody else to do what you tell them however you want, because there is no amount of money you can pay me to and take advantage of me in that sense. I mean, over the years, I've had the fortune of working for some of the most amazing people in the world. So when this happened, I realized that this was just a sign for me to have to leave. I'm not saying that my employer was a bad person. She was also dealing with her own things with her job, her work. She has her own company. So it was a lot going on there. have NDAs, so I can't really delve deep into that. I'll make a whole other video about what it is that I do and what it entails without really bringing anybody in particular into the picture, because there's so many great aspects of the job that I do. I just want to be as honest as possible on my next journey, because I think when we talk about healing as women, what we do is we put these beautiful statuses on social media and talking about how strong we are and how great this journey is. And nobody really wants to talk about the dark part of it, the tunnel that you go through before you see that light. So where I am right now is in the very depth of that dark tunnel. I mean, I know where I'm going because, I'm a person who plans. I plan and I leave it to the universe, because as we know, you can only plan so much before things just happen. I am intentional about my healing. That doesn't mean that I know exactly what's going to happen. I can only plan so much. I mean, as of now, I had to change my dates, my travel dates 3 times, because the country I chose to go to at first then shut down completely because of the new variant. Then the second country I chose to go to started having a lot of, vacationers going there, and just, it's not really a scene that I want to be around right now. I'm not in a party mood. I just want to be somewhere quiet. I want to be somewhere by the water. I want to be somewhere peaceful where I can spend time with myself, healing, and time with my son, just being fully present for him. So I want everybody to understand that the journey I'm about to share is not anything luxurious for me. It is not me showing off or bragging about, oh, look where I am. It is as raw as it's going to get. That's not the kind of content that you're going to be getting from me this year. This year, you're going to be getting a person who is trying to find themselves. I'm trying to find the new version of me that's not career driven. I don't want to be career driven this year. I don't want to be giving so much of myself to my employers. I don't want to, I only have enough. I have enough right now just for my son and for myself. I have nothing else to give. So if you ask me for help this year, if you ask me for anything this year, you're probably not going to get it, because all that's left of my battery at this moment is for me to, I'm just hanging in there for the sake of my son. And with that understanding, I have to leave everything behind to go to a space where nothing else is going to be expected of me other than refilling my battery and getting back to a space where I know what I'm doing. Because at this point, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Now, I'm not just taking off without a plan. Again, I always have some kind of skeleton plan, all the way from why I'm choosing certain countries to go to what my expectation is when I get to the country, to how I plan to raise my child, what I want my child to learn from that country. So I've been very strategic in choosing where my son and I go. I understand that this is also a privilege. Not every mom is gonna get a chance to just leave everything behind and take off to some destination that, where they get to sit down by the beach and heal. I get that. And I guess that is the advantage of me having waited until I was 40 to have a child. I had developed my career to a place where I know, should at any point in time this not work out, it'll only take me, a couple of weeks to come back and get a new job and figure myself out. So that is a privilege that comes with having developed a very, very strong career background, because I can exit out of it, and while I'm out of it, I can still be adding more skills and developing myself in a way that when I come back, I'll even have more to offer. So I do have those strategies in place. So I'm not here to advise everybody to just drop off the face of the earth and take off without a plan, because that in itself can cause even further suffering. But what I'm saying is, I owe myself that grace. I owe myself that kindness. I owe myself that to be gentle. I need myself to be gentle towards me, because I feel like since I started working, since the beginning of my career, I've given so much of myself in every way possible to everybody else. And now that I have a child, it is important that I show up as the best version of myself. So that is the reason why I'm leaving everything behind. I'm leaving everything behind to go and heal. And to the mothers who don't have the privilege that I have, because I don't know how everybody does it. I don't know how people have multiple kids and have to take care of them and take care of their partners and deal with their partners' families and deal with their own families. I don't know how. I don't know how you all do it. And I have so much respect for that. Now that I'm in it, I mean, I worked for at least a decade at the beginning of my career, helping support mothers, helping support families. So I know that people paid me, first of all, a lot of money to show up and be there for the mom. Husbands paid me a whole lot of money to show up and be there for their husband and for their wives and kids. Moms who are CEOs, moms who are, from every background, really had me there. I was there. I was there for those other moms, and I showed up to the best of my ability because I knew, I could see, I was in those family environments. I mean, sometimes I spent 11, 12 hours within, the family dynamic, helping the moms with their kids. So unfortunately, when I had a child, I couldn't even have that structure in place because of the pandemic. I couldn't bring, people who could potentially make myself and my son sick into our household, and I had to do this by myself. I thought it was very ironic, really, that for someone who had spent close to a decade helping and supporting other women with their kids now ends up having to literally, do this by herself. But as they say, God never gives you a problem that you cannot solve. So that in itself, the fact that I had that background and had taken care of kids, kind of gave me a little bit of an edge because I sort of knew what to expect. But when it pertains to you being responsible 24/7 for keeping this human being alive, feeding them, clothing them, taking care of them, teaching them how to sleep, teaching them how to do different things, it's a whole different ballgame because you are on 24/7. There's no handing the baby over to somebody else. I'm not sitting here complaining about having to take care of my child. I want everybody to know that I made a conscious decision to have my child. I'm just here giving myself the much needed grace that most women don't get to do. We don't get to step away from our lives and say, I need a moment, because then that makes us weak. My channel is going to be about starting over. Whatever that means to you, whether you just lost your partner, whether you are going through a divorce, whether you are going through a breakup of any sort, or whatever trauma you are dealing with while having to raise your kids. I'm going to go on this journey as raw as possible, and I hope that maybe if you see this, you can perhaps have a moment to yourself, even if it means just an hour a day. You don't have to fall off your whole life like I'm about to do. But you can also just give yourself a little space and a little grace and a little kindness so that you can show up as best as possible for your family and your kids. I'm not doing this to be cool or for subscribers or for likes. I'm doing this because I've realized that over the years, I've had quite a lot of influence about, when it comes to careers and everything. I've offered a lot of advice to young people to go after their dreams and whatnot. And I think that it's only fair that I step up and say, it is also okay to stop. The 24-hour mentality, the 3 a.m. wake up, the midnight or the late night grind, it's trending a lot right now, where we have to be doing the most in terms of our careers and in pursuit of our ambitions. and nobody talks about the mental health aspect of it. I don't feel like I'm in a good space mentally, and I want to get back to a healthy place. I want to find my balance again, and that is why I have decided to take the year off, to step away from my career, to step away from the USA, to step away from the need to grind, to step away from normal. I don't want normal anymore. I want peace. The normal that I have isn't serving me at the moment. And I want everybody to understand that it is okay. It's okay for me. It's okay for me at this point to step away from it all. And I hope you come with me on this journey. I'm going to try my best to update you guys as much as I can. I don't want to make any promises. This is not the year where I make promises that are scheduled to say I'm going to drop a video every week. I want no pressure on myself. I'll post a video where I can. I'll share what's going on where I can. And if I don't, I'm okay with that too. So to every woman who is dealing with some kind of change in their lives, you can follow and watch me make all the mistakes, because I'm not gonna put any gloss over what I'm about to do. I'm gonna share all of it, all the way down to how much it's gonna cost me. Let me take a moment to get some sleep while my son is sleeping still, and I'll catch up with you guys soon. Thank you.